This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News Weekend starts now.
Well, the outrage over sexual harassment is worldwide, and among the responses has been a, a powerful social media message simply called Me Too, posts by women who say they have suffered sexual harassment and assault. So how can men join the conversation to help women and change the culture? Joining me this morning is Dr. Will Courtenay. He's an Oakland psychotherapist. He's also the author of the book, Dying to Be Men. Will, thank you for joining us. This is really a good opportunity, as you were saying during the break, of reassessing the relationship between men and women, especially in the workplace.
Yes, this is really a great window of opportunity, Marty, to really look at this problem in a bigger way, to look at manhood in America and how this culture of manhood allows men to do what they do. And, you know, we could go on prosecuting the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, you know, from here to kingdom come. But if we don't actually change the culture, that's what really needs to happen. We need to, and there's an opportunity right now to be able to do that, to step back and say, you know, we need to do more here. And we as men need to change that culture of masculinity.
How does that start?
Well, it starts by really owning that this is men's job to do this, to change this. You know, we need to change masculinity. We can't expect women to do that. That's not their responsibility, right?
Right.
So, and one of the things that we need to do is to think about this differently and frame the questions about it a little differently. We oftentimes think of sexual harassment as a woman's issue.
Yeah, there's that perception issue, right?
And it leaves the sexual predators out of it. So, you know, most men are not sexual predators, but it's also true that nearly all sexual predators are men, and we need to understand why it is that these men are doing what they do. So Jackson Katz is a guy who's been working with men around this for years, and he really emphasizes the need to look at the language that we use around this. So, you know, we always ask, how many women were raped this year, and how many women experienced sexual harassment? And he's saying we really need to shift that and ask instead, how many men committed rape? How many men committed sexual harassment? And when we shift that, it really shifts the way that we think about this problem.
Explain that a little bit more. How so? How does that change?
So, you know, one of the problems when we talk about sexual violence against women, the men committing that violence are not a part of that framework, the way that we're talking about it and thinking about it. So what we end up doing then is, well, and when we think about it as a women's issue, men stop paying attention. They say, well, it's a women's issue, let women deal with it, when in fact it's really something we need to deal with. So, and what happens when we think about it is like sexual violence against women, we focus then on the women and start to ask the wrong questions, and questions like, okay, so what was she wearing?
Yes.
And how much did she drink at that party? When we really should be framing the question not as sexual violence against women, but really men's sexual violence.
You mentioned that this is an opportune time to reframe this discussion. Unfortunately, is what happens in our society is that there's laser-like focus on an issue for a very short amount of time, and then we move on to something else. How do we make sure that we continue to discuss this and change the way that this issue is talked about?
Well, I think, you know, there's a wave now that we really need to ride and take advantage of this moment. And we as men especially, we need to stand with women as allies and stand up to men who are sexually harassing women. So, you know, we just heard from Quentin Tarantino. He came out in the New York Times saying that he now feels guilty and regrets having been silent and not having confronted Weinstein. The problem is too often we men are silent. We remain silent. And our silence is really a form of consent.
Yeah.
It's a sign that it's okay. So we need to break the silence. We need to, you know, it's the same thing when we hear a racist comment. You know, we have to, you know, hopefully we're going to react to that in the same way when we hear demeaning comments about women, when we hear about intentions to sexually harass women, we need to stand up. We need to say, dude, stop. That's not okay. That could be my daughter. That could be my wife, my mother.
Yeah.
So it's not okay. I don't like you doing that. I don't like you saying that or speaking that way.
So often, though, it happens that that person might be your boss. and there's a reticence to
right. There is a reticence.
Up.
It takes actually a lot of courage,
yeah.
and we need more men with courage to stand up. But it's really are those bosses that we need to help see this differently, because they're in a leadership role. Other men look to them.
Yeah, great
and
point.
what we're really talking about is changing kind of the social norms about what's acceptable male behavior in this country. And it's we as men that need to take responsibility for that and say, look, this is not okay, and we need to change it.
We start to change. Okay. Will Courtenay, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We'll be right back.